Hey City Fam. I actually heard something yesterday. It made me think of all of us. It made me think of everybody at City Fam. It was really about being authentic. I would love for us in City Fam to be a culture of people who are not afraid to be real with each other. I actually had somebody send a video to me yesterday. It was a video from Will Smith and his wife, and they were actually sitting around this table and they were talking about life, and it made me think, how many times do we communicate with each other from a place of a character? Imagine that we're like talking to each other, but we're not our true self. You know what I'm saying? It's like not our true self that's communicating with the other person, but it's the self that we want to be. Let me explain that a little more. Like, okay, here's a good example. You know, a lot of people sometimes who are just late, they'll just show up to things late, but then you'll hear them turn around and they'll just complain about the people who are always late. I can't say I've never done it. I've totally done it. I want to be the person who is always on time and ready and prepared and has everything that I need to do whatever it is that we're doing. But sometimes I'm just not. Like, I push the clock so tight. And sometimes I complain about the people who are consistently late. I'm living this place of a character that I want to be. In this interview with Will Smith and his wife, she's sitting there at the table and he's talking and she's explaining that she spent all of these years living with him and she was just like being who she thought he wanted instead of who she actually is. It just made me think, what if we really were able to be the kind of people who live through a lens of who we actually are? We try to come from this place of our most beautiful self or our most together self. And I've done it. I do it. I still do it. I have this thing where sometimes I just feel like I'm not enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not real enough. Whatever. You could put anything behind that. And sometimes I probably feel it. But right now I'm living in a whole different place where it's like, yes, I'm enough for me, and that's good. I'm enough for my creator, and that's good. That's all I need right there. And so then you come into relationships that way. You don't have to be cute. You don't have to be super smart. You don't have to be all of these things. You can just be who you are. And imagine if we got to have relationships like that, where we got to be real, where we didn't care that we look like this, like we don't have our makeup on, and we just are showing up like, hey, I'm here to be myself. That's the kind of life that I want to live. So what would you do if you were not afraid to do anything at all? And a bigger question than even that would be, what would you do if you weren't afraid to say anything at all? Imagine the things that we hold back from saying to people, the relationships that we could have with people if we actually just said things that might come across as really scary. Maybe you have a friend and there's something that is bothering you, but instead you just kind of hold it instead of just talking to them. I actually value like the people in my life that are willing to say the hard things to me, the people in my life that are willing to say, hey, that's really kind of gross in your life, or the people in my life that I know that I can go to and I can ask them the really hard questions and they can handle it. Like, that's amazing. So ask yourself, like, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid that might happen if you were yourself? What are you afraid might happen if you told the truth? What are you afraid might happen if you were your actual, real, authentic self? I'm 100% guilty of not being authentic. I'm 100% guilty of being afraid of it. I'm 100% guilty of feeling like I'm not enough. But at the same time, when I do and when I am, that's my favorite self. I wish that with City Fam, that's who we all could be. In our mess, in our moment, in our reality, even at our best, even when we look amazing and we're doing great and we're killing life and we're winning. That's who I want all of us. That's who I hope all of us can be. Anyway, I think y'all heard enough from me. It does take practice to be your real self. I think the biggest thing for me, in order for me to be my real self, was to be honest with myself. What would you guys say is the hardest thing for you when it comes to being yourself? Put your comments down here. Like, tell us what it is that you struggle with in being yourself, and I'll do the same. Okay? Bye, guys.